Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
That's one thing I love about where we live is nature. I mean, that's something that we all have access to, sunlight. It's true. If you just get outside, expose yourself to nature, sunlight, the sound of the birds, the water, take a walk, because you can practice mindful meditation doing those things. So what do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? Like the warmth of the sun or the wind blowing. I know it doesn't solve a problem, but it changes your mood. It just does. Even if it comes back, at least you changed it for a little bit and gave yourself a little bit of a break.
Michelle White was discussing some simple things we can all do to support our mental well-being, even without stepping into therapy. Michelle is a licensed psychologist based in Bokeelia and the founder of Azul Mindspace. With over 20 years of experience, Michelle brings not only deep knowledge, but genuine warmth, compassion, and understanding to her work. And now, here's Michelle. Well, today we have Michelle White. Welcome. Psychologist, owner of Azul Mindspace. Thank you very much. You do so much good for people. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We always start in the beginning, where you grew up, where you went to school, how you found Pine Island. Could you fill us in on that?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in West Virginia and lived there my whole life until my husband and I decided to move to Florida in 2017. And so that's where I did all my schooling, was West Virginia. And I went to college at Marshall University Graduate College, and worked there for a long time as a psychologist. And my husband was in the military. And then when I met him, and then he was getting ready to retire, because he had put all of his years and a few more in. And so we decided it was an opportunity to change things up. And we'd been dreaming of Florida. We'd been down here and thought, well, this is kind of our chance. We have this little window to have some freedom to make some changes. And so we came down to Florida.
When did you first discover that psychology was an interest of yours, that you wanted to go into it as a?
It was early. First I wanted to be a teacher. That was the first thing that came to mind, because my grandmother was a teacher, my mother was a teacher, and so I sort of thought that's what I might like to do. And then when I was in junior high, they brought these people in who were training kids to be peer counselors, and kids voted on who they would like to be a peer counselor. And so I got chosen as one of the little groups of kids to get trained to be a peer counselor. And so I loved it. So that was sort of the first little spark of I would like to do this for a living.
Oh,
yeah. So it was young.
Yeah, it was young.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start Azul's Mindspace? How did you come up with the name Azul Mindspace?
Oh, so before we moved down here, I started reading this book called Blue Mind. I don't know if you've heard of it, by Dr. Wallace Nichols, I think. And he just talked about how there really is a science to how water interacts with our bodies, and our brain releases the quote, feel-good chemicals that makes us feel better. So it increases a sense of calm, decreases anxiety, decreases depression. And I just thought, well, how neat that they put the science to it, that we know when we're by the water, it just feels sort of meditative and relaxing. And turns out it really does. There was some science to back that up. So that sort of inspired me, but that was before I even moved here. I was still working for other people. Moved down here and was working with drug court, working with substance use disorder clients. COVID hit, and then we had to work from home for a little while. And then we went back into the office, and I really just liked the work from home aspect. It was hard to put that genie back in the bottle, and bring everyone back to the office. And I thought, I would really like to just work for myself and do this on my own. And wonder if I could do that. And so I started brainstorming, well, what would I call it? And then I thought, well, gosh, I live on Pine Island. It's right there with water access. Wonder if I could do a spin on Blue Mind. So I came up with Azul Mind Space from there.
For someone listening who's never worked with a psychologist before, how would you explain what therapy was like? Or what it's like with you?
So everyone's different. I'm sure everyone has different styles. My theoretical orientation would be cognitive behavioral psychology for the most part. And so that's going to be where you challenge and shift thoughts and behaviors that aren't really helpful or working for you to get them to work for you. And then, of course, on top of that, just a humanistic, individualized experience. I really try to listen for understanding. That's a concept they use for like John Gottman in marital therapy. He talks about one of the things is listen for understanding. But I think it's really helpful in that therapeutic relationship too, is just really try to understand where the person is coming from so that you can give some feedback that's going to be helpful and useful and personalized.
In business, how concepts overlap, they called it different things over the years, but one of the last ways it was presented was called active listening.
Yes.
And it was for people in meetings, and you probably know way more than I, but they separated in two buckets. And one was you listen to respond.
Yes.
Which is the poor side or the bad side of it, or you listen to understand. And so that's interesting in trying to get people to communicate and better accomplish stuff in business. It rolls right into your training and your perspective on therapy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good interpersonal skill, right? In any setting, work, relationships, therapy.
What would you say to someone who's hesitant to take the first step? I noticed in reading about you at one time offered like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, and that's really common.
Is it?
Yeah. Okay. A lot of people offer a free, at least I think it is.
Or you hope so.
I hope so, yeah. They offer a free 15-minute consult. It just helps both of you figure out, does this seem like a good fit? Is this something within my wheelhouse that I might be able to help you with after talking to me? Because they're interviewing me as well. So we're kind of interviewing each other to see if it seems like a good fit. And then we go from there with no pressure. I mean, they can either take the next step or not, or think about it, continue to shop around.
Well, talking to you is so easy. That might relax them more.
Oh, hopefully.
Yes. Start talking more than 15 minutes probably in the first.
Yeah, that's the hard part is when it does click and then to cut it off. Yes.
What would you say are the common reasons why people seek therapy? Or
there's often people struggle with depression or anxiety. A lot of times those end up being related more to situational problems or adjustment issues. And so trying to figure out, is this like biological depression, or is it external situationally caused depression, a combination of both? And some people just want to do some tweaks, level up, just try to get healthier, improve their mental wellness. And so it's sort of a range. But with telehealth, you can't do anything. Well, you can, but I don't, because I'm not comfortable doing anything too serious. Like if people are struggling with suicidal ideation or something that requires more of a presence, more of an ability to respond. And so if I'm in Florida and someone's in West Virginia and it's 5 p.m., that's a lot more difficult to respond to than if a crisis is more difficult to respond to than if they had an in-person therapy office that they were going to for things like that.
How do you help people feel comfortable opening up?
I'm not sure. I remember when I was in graduate school, a really helpful piece of advice before I started doing this, just when I was training to do this, I had a professor who said, your goal is not to like everybody. You don't have to like everyone. You don't have to like all of your clients. What I want you to do is find something about them that you respect. And back to listening for understanding, when you're really listening to someone, it's easy to find something you respect. And I also try to hear what their strengths are when they're telling me their story or their situation, and try to draw those out and give them that feedback as well. And I think that helps people feel more comfortable, because people sometimes it's hard to go to therapy because of the stigma, or they think something's wrong with me. And so to be able to say, well, here's what's right about you. Here's what some of your strengths are. And so let's use those to try to balance this out. So that might help. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just try to make people feel comfortable, but I'm not really sure.
I think that's a great answer.
How I do that, or if I do that. Hopefully I do.
What would you say are some early signs that friends or family can look for or be on the lookout for lack of a better phrase, where it might be worth suggesting that somebody could use your help or somebody else's help?
When it starts interfering with functioning in some area of life. So if it's interfering with your work functioning, someone's noticing it. And sometimes work notices that before a spouse. Work might call you into HR and point something out. So if it's interfering with social functioning, relationship functioning, legal functioning, like if you start having legal problems as a result of what might be going on, I mean, you can definitely head things off before that, but that's when a person in their lives could have some evidence to come to them out of a place of concern and use that to try to address the issue.
So in today's world, doctors are telling you should eat better and exercise and do stuff with your brain, keep active, these kinds of things, interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
From your perspective, what are things that can help the overall mental well-being that somebody can do themselves, without necessarily having to seek therapy?
Well, that's one thing I love about where we live is nature. I mean, that's something that we all have access to, sunlight. It's true. If you just get outside, expose yourself to nature, sunlight, the sound of the birds, the water, take a walk, because you can practice mindful meditation doing those things. So what do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? Like the warmth of the sun or the wind blowing. I know it doesn't solve a problem, but it changes your mood. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it comes back, at least you changed it for a little bit and gave yourself a little bit of a break. So it's very grounding. It's very therapeutic. And there's lots of research on that too, that's something we can all do for free.
If friends or family see a loved one or a dear friend going through a situation, they may try to help, and that help may not necessarily be what the person needs. So are there maybe any do's or don'ts for friends and families of somebody who is struggling?
Yes, I think just an attempt to convey that it's coming from a place of compassion and concern and not judgment. No shaming, shame-based attempts don't work in the long run, because shame doesn't really change people deep down. They might do a short-term change to appease people, but people need to be inspired to change or motivated to change, and shame isn't really a motivator. So I know when people get desperate, sometimes they resort to that to try to get the person to seek help and make a change. And then one of the other things is you can convey a concern, but you just cannot force someone, unless you can make a threat. But if you make a threat, it has to be that you really mean it. Like, don't say anything you don't mean. Like, if you don't go to therapy, I'm divorcing you. Mm-hmm. Don't say that unless you really are there and mean it and can back it up. So mean what you say. If you're using some ultimatums to try to get some urgency on it to push someone into therapy.
And how do you explain for people that haven't studied it, mood disorder?
Well, mood disorders, there's such a wide range and there's so much overlap. So really, I try to get them to tell me everything that's going on. And it falls on a spectrum. So it's mild, moderate, and severe. And it can be episodic. So it's not necessarily a constant mood episode but then you also have some that are very chronic and long-term and constant. So there's just so much variance in it.
You mentioned the working with the drugs. So you get misuse or addiction to prescription medications as well as illegal products. So what's your approach there? Is it a little bit more holistic and you got to change a lot of things, or how's somebody work through that?
Well, the research says if you can get them to do anything at all, just one thing, 12-step recovery groups, even over therapy, and they're free. So that is the most effective tool. And it still I know it doesn't work for everyone, but that seems to be where people find the most success. And what that does is it is a lifestyle change. They work through the steps to create a lifestyle change. And I remember hearing someone say the best people are the people who are in recovery, working a recovery program. And those are the healthiest people in the room. And I thought that was really, really neat to hear, really inspiring. And I thought it's true, because they're the ones doing the work, the holistic work. I would recommend that if a person does anything, and then anything they can add to it. Community service, which 12-step groups are likely going to encourage. But yes, community service, therapy, health with food, your sleep regimen. So you're right. It's very holistic and it's all encouraged. But if you can get the foot in the door in a recovery program, that's a great place to start.
Codependency is a term that gets thrown around a lot. How would you define that or describe that to people?
I would describe it as, I think the term is misleading, and I actually don't like the term because it sounds like you're dependent on people. And the way I learned about it was, it's not that you're dependent on people, it's how you feel is dependent upon how other people are doing. So there's this real concern for other people. And so I put overly in front of it. So you become not just helpful, but overly helpful. You feel overly responsible for other people's problems and solving them for them. You feel overly responsible for other people's feelings and wanting them to feel better. So it's not that you're a dependent person who can't function independently. It's just you have a lot of empathy and compassion for other people. It just goes too far.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it happens a lot with loved ones of people who have substance abuse issues or mental health issues, because I mean, it's so concerning and heartbreaking to see someone you love struggle. And so people tend to go into overdrive trying to help them overcome the struggle. And so I think it's just trying to take the overly out of it, because you won't lose your niceness or your compassion or your empathy. It's just, let's take the overly out of it so that you're in the equation too. You matter also. They matter and you matter. And getting those people to take good care of themselves as well.
Does some of that come into the fact where, at least something I've heard or read over the years, is you can't correct something till you admit you have the problem? So if somebody's trying to help you in this codependency, the way you defined it, if I've yet to admit I have a problem, then you're not going to be able to, I got to fix it myself. I would maybe guess you're going to say, but not going to go anywhere. Or if I'm not willing to admit there's a problem, then I'm not willing to work on it. And that's not helping at all. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. A similar quote is, we cannot change what we do not acknowledge. And so acknowledging it so that you have an awareness of it would be an initial step. So then thinking about stages of change and trying to apply that to that. So pre-contemplative is where you're not even thinking there's a problem that you need to change. And so there's different things you can do with a person who's in that stage to try to get them to see there's a problem. Then it moves into contemplative, where they're thinking about it, but there's some ambivalence. I want to change, but I also don't want to. Here's some problems, but here's some reasons to stay the same, because change is uncomfortable. It takes a lot of effort in the beginning. The stage a lot of people skip is preparation. This is come up with a plan so you can be successful with the change. Because when people decide, okay, I do want to make the change, they kind of go straight into action mode because they're ready to jump on it, but they didn't come up with a plan, the preparation. And then you can have relapse with whatever the change is.
What you were saying about a lot of people don't have a plan. They're like, well, I'm going to start a diet. And it never happens. They want to.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you try, you can't do for more than 2 minutes a day. He says, you have to make it a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has all these techniques for, building habits and, but no, you have to make it, you do it after you do something every day, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
he has all these ways for you to achieve those goals. But it's just like what you were talking about. You have to have a plan.
Well, because like even with diet, if the first time you have a craving, if there's no plan,
Exactly.
you can't think it's biochemical. It's really difficult to think your way out of a craving. And so to have a plan on how to deal with it so that you don't relapse on your diet.
Well, your practice is telehealth based.
Yes.
How is that going for people? Do they seem, is it more relaxing for some individuals to be able to be in their own home when they're working with you, or is it hard for them?
I think they like it better. I know some people prefer in person. I prefer in person for certain topics, actually. But what's been really nice about telehealth is people do seem more comfortable. People show up more for the sessions. There's less no-show rates because they can work that into their day. They don't have to leave, drive 30 minutes somewhere, spend an hour, 30 minutes back, get childcare, take leave from work, whatever it is. So the convenience of it, I think, is one of the pluses that makes up for not being in the same room together. So they are getting more out of it because they actually go in that way. Yeah. So I
It's
think
hard to be late for it.
it
right?
is, right. And if they are late, I mean, it's just a couple of minutes because they're, trying to get things situated or get off a work meeting, get onto the therapy meeting. It's also really nice to see people get a little peek into their home environment and what it looks like there and how they are at home, relaxed in a sweatshirt, ponytail versus how they would show up to an in-person therapy session. So I feel like it's a little more authentic in that way. And their cat goes across the screen.
Kind of lightens the whole mood.
All
too.
those moments. Yeah.
If you could pick out one or two things that you wish people better understood about mental health, what would you say?
Well, I think that mental health doesn't necessarily have to be a disorder. You can work on mental health just like exercise. I mean, we can always get a little healthier, work on wellness. And it's kind of like medication. You can use therapy when you need it as we go through different seasons of life or situations that happen in life or it. So you can take therapy up and down or not at all as you need it. And learn that there's just so many things you can take away from that and become your own therapist in between the more critical times when we just need the connection with someone so that we don't become isolated during tough times in our life or when we're in a trial of life. Connection really helps us stay grounded and pulls us out of isolation and depression, which skews judgment. And so I think just that connection with another person helps.
If someone listening feels they might benefit by speaking with you, how would they go about that?
Well, there's several different ways. They can email me, Michelle White at azulmindspace.com. I know that's long, but it's easy to look up. They could email me. They can look on my website and find the email and the phone number. It'll most likely go to an answering service, but they can leave a message and then I can call them back that way. I'm on a few different platforms as well. You can find me that way. So there's Pine Island Prospect. They could find me that way, find some information in there. So there's a lot of various ways.
And your Facebook page is very nice.
Oh, yes. And I have a Facebook page too. Yes. Thanks.
That's a very popular social on Pine Island Facebook.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes.
That's a good way to find you.
Yes.
Well, it was wonderful
Oh,
speaking with you.
thank you.
It was I don't think we've ever done anything like this before on a podcast, but it's certainly needed everywhere. It's a great subject and well needed.
Well, thank you. Yes. I just thought of another thing.
Oh, good.
I guess, but just with us being on this island and hurricanes, which brings up the topic of trauma and PTSD. And one of the things to help people with that or help prevent the severity of it, I think, is preparedness, which increases resilience. And it used to be with anxiety, you would hear, well, if you have a client with anxiety and they have the what ifs, what if this happens or what if that happens? Then you say, well, but what if it doesn't? Get them to consider that option. Well, that doesn't really work. And so what's better is to let's go there. What if the worst case scenario happens? Let's come up with a plan on how you're going to deal with that so that you can handle it. And so that will increase resilience. Anyway, I like to talk about that in therapy too.
Yeah, it's very appropriate.
Yeah.
Especially here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We enjoyed it.
Thank you. I did too. Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.